Hey there, Emmanuel here from WebDevFuel, and in this video, I'm going to explain why I think that Horizon Alpha is the best LLM I've used so far for coding and web development. So this model is currently available for free in the OpenRouter website, and you can use the OpenRouter API to connect it to CLI tools like Crush, which is the CLI tool that I'm currently using. I'm also going to do a video in the future on how to set up this CLI tool. But in this video specifically, I'm going to explain to you why this model, which by the way, we currently don't know who's behind the model. So this is a cloaked model, meaning that we don't know basically the name of it, we don't know the company, none of that stuff. The company behind this is using this as a way to basically like train the model and test the model before actually releasing it. There are rumors that ChatGPT, or in this case OpenAI, is the company behind it, but that's really not relevant for this video. The idea here is that I want to explain to you why I think that this is the best LLM that I've used for coding so far, and why I think that my general ideas here are much different than the general, let's say, population or people that usually talk about this kind of stuff, like LLMs or AI coding agents. So I've been using it to basically build and refactor part of this calendar application that I'm creating here. And the idea is going to be like an application that allows me to structure my day using AI and be able to do sort of like uh, time slot things for me based on my level of energy and stuff like that. And it's going to be mainly targeted towards people with ADHD in the workspace. So now I want to explain first of all that I've started using Opus and Claude Sonnet to build this project, and those were the LLMs that I've used to bootstrap this project and start working with it. Now I've tested Claude Code with Sonnet and Opus for a few weeks, uh, and to be honest, I've just decided to cancel my subscription and start using other models, open source stuff, and these kinds of things. I'm also going to do a video in the future talking about why I think that open source in the end will win, even if not the models, the tooling like Crush, for example, here, or other CLI tools like Goose, which I also wanna talk about. But the idea is that I've used Opus and Sonnet to start this project, and while they're not, let's say, bad LLMs, I'm not trying to say here that everything about those models is bad. The idea is that I think that those models do too much. So what I mean by this is that, as you can see here, we have refactored the weak view to a single grid. Type check shows broader unrelated errors. Weak view now depends on event layer. Want me to continue fixing or stop here for this PRD scope? So this is something that, to get Sonnet or to get Opus to do this, you would need a lot of like instructions. Like you would need to basically beg the LLM basically to say, please do not continue doing work, or do not get out of your scope, do not do more than you need to do. And that just ends up ruining so much of the projects that I work with Opus or Sonnet, especially Opus. And what it seems to me is that Opus is, let's say, so smart and knows so much stuff, but in the end, that ends up being like a trick, like a magic trick, because Opus like starts doing that thing and then he changes that other things. And to me, at least at the beginning, I thought to myself, okay, this looks great because this model, I'm asking it to do one thing, and then it just starts like changing things all over the place. And yeah, thanks brother, because you're um like refactoring other parts of the code base, you're fixing this stuff, yeah, let's also fix that stuff while we're at it. And that just seems amazing, right? And that was the thing that I thought at first, and I think this is what most people using AI for development think currently. But as I started using this model, to be honest, only yesterday at night, I used it for, let's say, a couple of hours before going to sleep. And now, after waking up, I started using it and playing with it. And I I have to say this is my favorite model so far to program. Now I'm going to try to explain to you by first of all showing you this thing here. Like I said, refactored this thing, but it's not getting out of the scope at all. So I asked it to first of all create here a couple of um, PRD documents. So we have here PRD documents for the file area, actions, popover, for the store, for the positioning, removing the persistence, since I want to move to like fetching things from the server. And when I give it a task, for example, here with to implement a document with Crush, which I'll also show you in a future video how to do, it stays on that task and it never leaves the task. That's something that it seems like something basic, right? That would basically happen with any kind of LLM, but that's not the case. Simply put, Sonnet and Claude, which are the best models for coding when it comes maybe to like syntax and knowing to what to do, they just do so much stuff that it's a pain point how much stuff they do. And this model, while I think it's still not perfect, the amount of things that it does or it doesn't, it's so much better to have a model that stops and say, hey, do you want me to do this or do you want me to do that? So here previously it even asked me, so let's take a look here. If I scroll up, okay, so it says here, I need to change week view to compute positions with layout week and render directly. Do you want me to replace the column usage with a single grid using time grid content and event layer, or keep the columns but feed positions from layout week? And I simply look, so just the fact that it stopped and it said, hey, so do you want me to take this approach or that approach? Which one do you think is better? So this is, I cannot even explain to you. This is so mind blowing that, and it sort of to me seems like, okay, this should have been like included into LLMs in the first place, not this thing of I just want to like please the user. Oh yeah, I'm going to do so much things that the user is going to be so happy with it. But instead, this thing of, okay, I'm not sure which action to take here. Which one do you think I should take? And my response was which approach do you think would be better? And it said, okay, this approach. So proceed with that. Another thing is that it provides like concise answers. So I cannot really go up too much without like losing too much time. But the fact that it said to me here, which approach would you think is better? Single grid using time grid content and event layer, not like a paragraph of response like saying this and why. And I just said, which one do you think is better? Good. But if I were to say which approach would you think is better and explain your reasoning for it, then it would do that. So this is very human like. I cannot even put that into words. And the reason that I'm doing this video is because I'm very confused as to the response from other people. So I've been like on X or Twitter, and I've seen the response to this model from other people, and it is very underwhelming. So they're like, oh, this is not really that great, it's not really good at doing coding. And I'm going to explain why I think that those people are completely wrong. But as you can see now, if I come here and it says here type check shows broader unrelated errors. So the simple fact that it shows errors that are not related to this, and it tells me, okay, so I'm going to ignore those errors. Let's just leave that to another time, okay? It's just mind blowing. And then, and I didn't need to like specify that. I'm not really sure if this makes sense, but I do not need to negate those actions. It already only takes like action on positive affirmations from me. So if I say I want you to fix this part of the code, it goes to that part of the code and it fixes. And I don't need to say it, which is not the case with Sonnet. Hey, please do not fix other things. Do not do all the other things. Do not do that. Do not do this. Do not change that. Do not. So I don't need to like babysit it so much, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to say here, want me to continue fixing the unrelated type issues or stop here for this PRD scope. Uh, Recheck if the PRD scope is finished and mark the PRD document with the completed tasks. Okay, so now I'm going to say this to it and it's thanking and doing this thing. So all position tests in the scope are done. I mark the completed items under. Okay, so this is what I mean. Like, this is still not perfect when it comes to this stuff. Uh, please in the, and if I say here, so it's the positioning docs prd positioning refactor.md file. Actually, let's get the file here. So yeah, so it's has here the progress. So now it's going to write here, and it's going to mark these things. So this is another thing that, like I said, I'm still not really sure if this has like the perfect balance, but I much prefer to have like a very clearly defined prompt, or like even not even prompt. So with this model, I don't even think in terms of prompt. I just think in terms of instructions that I would give to a person. So I want you to mark this file with the completed tasks, and you need to write to it or something like that. So I much prefer to have something where I need to like be very specific than not have that specificity. Now, I wanted to show you here these slides that sort of go through like the big picture of this. So if we move back here, so the server is not running, I'm going to show you this in just a little bit. So comparing Horizon Alpha to Sonnet and Opus, the comparison here is that Horizon Alpha is lean and it does exactly what you ask. So not only is it a very fast model. So again, I don't know which company is behind it. The rumor is that it is OpenAI, and it might be like a open source model. It might be GPT-5, GPT-5 Nano or Mini. I'm not really sure. But the fact of the matter is that this model is very fast in its responses, and it's also very good. So it has these two things going to it. So we don't have like the problem with other open source models where they're very fast, but they're not really that good when it comes to the quality. The thing here is that it is very so if we actually, let me rephrase this. um if we say exactly what we want it to do, it is very explicit in what it does. So this is something that I'm very blown away by. So it follows instructions and it doesn't reinvent the wheel. So if we give it detailed steps, and it does exactly that. So there's no creativity unless we ask it for. So if I say I need you to update this file, I need you to look for this thing, it does that thing specifically. Now, it might be a bit too verbose at first because I'm used to using Sonnet or Opus and saying just, hey, like refactor this thing. And it just like sort of figures it out on its own, and it does a lot of things and it takes a lot of decisions. Now, the problem for me here is that those decisions might not be the same ones that I would take, and usually they end up being like very bad decisions. So by being able to have like very specific prompts, I can much easier like create like how can I say this? Create pre-made prompts, create commands, like I said here. So I have this crush thing, and if I go here to the user, I have this project implement. So if I get here dot crush, this very simple. Let's start implementing the necessary changes in code base. According to the document, we can pass here arguments. You first analyze the code base given your tools, like listing the files, reading them where relevant, and understand how the code base works. After the initial knowledge gathering, you should implement the code changes referenced here. So I could go even deeper and be much more specific, and it would do exactly what I ask it for. So as you can see, I say here, you first analyze the code base given your tools, like listing the files. So by telling it that it should first of all list the files, it's going to do that. Now, it's not going to a lot of times figure out that it should do that, that it should list files, it should read them, it should do this and that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the fact that if I specify this, it always does it, is the point here, because I can make sure that these commands, these markdown command files are so specific. Like, we don't need to go like to a caricature of it. We don't need to over specify things. But if we specify things enough, then the model knows exactly what to do. And for me, this is much more important than having a model that sort of tries to do things for me, tries to figure out things, and sort of implement them instead of asking me to do things, asking me what the correct implementation should be, and so on and so on. So this entire refactor that I'm doing to this code base, which had a lot of errors because of Claude code, again, because Claude code just starts introducing so much errors because it changes things. But in this case, with this model, I was able to start refactoring things. Errors are going away. I'm like actually having a good implementation here inside of the code base, and this model is performing really well. Now, the other model's problem is that um, all of these things, so it just quote unquote knows what to do. It's quote unquote creative, it's quote unquote proactive. All of those things sound great until that it changes your code when you didn't ask it. And not only that, until it changes your code in ways that you didn't ask it without asking for permission. So this is something very common in Claude Code, like stopping the sequence of the agentic tool midway because you're like, no, no, please don't do that. Do not do that. And then you say don't do that, and then it does something completely different, but also bad. With this model, none of these problems are there. And I'm just again completely blown away and just in love with this. If this is done like by OpenAI, especially if this is an open source model, it's going to be like just blow things out of the water, in my opinion. So comparing these things side by side with Sonnet Opus, we might like give it a task, and it then, for example, reads the doc, then analyzes the whole code base, then it starts spinning up services, it starts running tests, then changes code again, and then tests again. This model, if you take a look here at um, like the start of the conversation, it actually asked me, hey, do you want me to run these linting tools to check things or not? Now, again, this might seem very counterintuitive because if it asks me to run this, I might be like, yeah, of course, you should like take a look at the lints before you make changes to see what the errors are. But that's not the case, in fact. So now that I see, okay, it usually asks me, do I run the lints or not? I can simply add here as part of the prompt. You should start by running PMP lint, for example, or PMP type dash check, and it does that. So if I specify this thing here, it is going to do that. And again, I know that I'm repeating this thing like over and over again, but this is just completely like amazing. Uh, so here, for example, Sonnet and Opus reads the docs, then analyzes the code base, spin up servers, runs tests, then changes code, then tests again. But with Horizon Alpha, if we say, hey, read the doc and update the code base, it does that. It doesn't do more than that. It doesn't do less than that. It just reads the docs and it updates the code base. And it doesn't start like wandering on side trips, on like side quests. So it doesn't do any of those things. And I think that when it comes to agentic coding tools, this is what we want. We don't want things that like and I know this is mostly a problem with Sonnet 3.7 and 4, if I'm not mistaken. A lot too with 3.5, but like you're telling it, hey, I want you to change this the color of this button, and then it says, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and yeah, by the way, I also change like the colors of all of the other buttons, and then you say, oh no no, please revert to the colors of the other buttons, and it then reverts like the color of all of the buttons. So this is a problem with Sonnet, with Opus 2. I would say even more because I'm not really sure why, but Opus just seems like so eager to do things and to say, hey, I've done this amazing thing and I've just refactored this like in a beautiful way and this now works. And then I start the server and it doesn't work. Also, another thing about this model is that it very rarely lies. So a lot of the times it just says, I don't know something. How should I do this? Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to do this? So it doesn't like make a lot of like out of proportion claims about what it's done. So yeah, the idea is that you write the PRD and it executes it. Nothing more, nothing less. You write clear priorities and steps, and it follows them to the last detail, and that's the point. It doesn't get sidetracked, not once. Like I said, I've been doing, and I know this is not a lot of tests, but I sort of like had more than enough time to like check the vibes of it and check how it works. And it didn't once get sidetracked. Not once when I said, "Hey, this is our task. This is what I want you to do." Not once did it go out of this like path and started like wandering and doing random stuff, which is just perfect. Another thing, like I said, is that it asks question. So it'll ask, "Do you want me to implement X or Y?" Actually, I wrote this yesterday. So these slides, I've wrote them yesterday at night before going to sleep, and and this part is something that I did today. So just like I said, let me just check here where it asked me. So do you want me to continue fixing this or do you want me to do that? And then up here it said, yeah. So on the thing that I basically like said, yes, please. PRD updated. So I'm not really sure how to find that part. Yeah, but basically, like I said in the beginning of the video, it said, do you want me to go with this implementation or with the other one? So for someone that might be not that familiar with how to actually use these things to produce code, actually use these things to program, this might seem like a very bad thing. So why are you asking me that? Just make your own decisions. Like you should know that. You should know how to do that. But if it doesn't have the knowledge, or even if both of the decisions might be similar, both of the decisions might work, how will it know which one is better? It might ask you for your opinion, but if you ask it for its opinion also, it's going to give it to you. So that's something that it's just amazing. Sometimes we don't want to implement. If you say implement, it will. If not, it won't. So okay, so here the idea was different. Sometimes it's going to ask you like, do you want me to implement this or not? And sometimes it's going to ask you, do you want me to implement X or Y? So both of these things are just amazing. And the thing that I want to say here, and my idea is that I want to basically convey this, that it's important to ignore just the hype of the one shot thing. So those one shot apps tests are just stupid, because clarity is much better than magic tricks. So I'm seeing a lot of these videos. Okay, I'm going to test like how this Horizon Alpha works. And I'm going to give you very few instructions and tell it, okay, I want you to build like a website that fetches like a list of dogs, or that like is like a website for a kind of service. Then I want you to make it beautiful. And by just giving these instructions, people expect these models to know what to do. And that's the mistake here. That's what I think the wrong thing is. Because as programmers, as web developers that actually work with this, that are actually um, trying to build something, that are trying to use these tools to like replace parts of ourselves, not everything, but just like replace certain parts. We want to automate certain parts. We don't want these magic tricks. I don't want to tell an LLM, hey, make this website beautiful, because then it makes something. It might look beautiful, but it's not the beautiful that I expected. So this happened to me all the time. So I want you to make this code base better. So when I started using these tools, I also wasn't really that knowledgeable, or I didn't really understand that I need to give it proper instructions. So I would say like, make this code base look better, make this website look beautiful, and then it would actually change things. It would look great, but not for the thing that I wanted. And then I would say, okay, no, make this a little bit different. And then it would start like making a lot of decisions. Instead, if I were able to like give it very proper instructions, it knows what to do. The problem again with Sonnet and Opus, and maybe even other models that are like very similar to them, is that they are going to take decisions and make decisions and be creative even when your prompt is very specific. So I give it like very much a specific prompt, and then it starts making a lot of decisions outside of the prompt. And then I get very frustrated because I'm like, dude, why did you do this? Why did you uh, make this thing when I said clearly not to do it? Why did you take this action when I said very clearly I don't want you to take this action? It is just uh, outside of the scope of this. Or why did you start changing things that I didn't even ask you? And I think that this hype around like the one shot app is very, like I said here, stupid, because I think that it just like tries to make this LLM something that should work very well in demo apps. They should work very well in these one shot apps, but that's not how these tools are actually being used by professionals. So when I'm using these tools to build a website, when I'm using these tools to refactor code, when I'm using these tools to even build things from scratch, I don't want to have this like magic thing of, hey, build me something, and it builds me something, and hey, great, it like took 1000 decisions on its own, and then I have to go there and say, no, I don't want that that way, I want it this way. With this model, it just doesn't do those things. It starts just asking questions and trying to understand how to do things. And especially if you take it up on those questions, if you say, okay, yeah, I want you to implement this way, then it continues like asking these questions along the way, and that's just amazing. So if you want to test this, then go to the Open Router website and you can set it up with Crash. I'm going to make a video probably in the next few days on how to actually set this up. Now, as a final step, I'm going to show you how you can use this to run a PRD document from scratch. So I've made a couple of adjustments here to the implement. So I went ahead and modified this a little bit, added the steps a little bit more clearly, and I also added here a step to run PMP lint and type check. And also I said here that we only should focus on the errors related to the document, and after the initial knowledge gathering, you should implement the changes referenced in the document. So again, the cool thing about this Crash CLI is that it allows us to pass here arguments, and the thing that is also great is that we don't need to pass like positional arguments like in the Cloud Code CLI. Instead, we can pass this with a name and we can reference it in multiple different places. So now I'm going to grab here one of these. So let's say, for example, the constant unification one, and I'm going to say here, run this, and it's going to be the constants unification.md. So I need to double and triple check this. And now let's run this. And it's going to go through each one of the steps. And let's sort of take a look at it and see how it does things. As you can see, first of all, it lists all of the files here. That's because I've specifically said that it should, first of all, analyze the code base given your tools, like listing files, reading them where they're relevant, and understand how the code base works. So it's now going through each one of these things. It also took a look here at the PRD document. Again, one of the great things about this model is that it's great at doing tool calling, so it's just amazing at that. Sometimes the only problem is, like, at the same time it's the great thing about it, at the same time it's also a problem, that it chooses to simply not do a tool call sometimes when you specifically ask it to, or not specifically, but you need to be a little more specific than previously. So now it's making here a couple of changes when it comes to these things. So it's basically changing here all of the directly referenced numbers here. So for example, the hour height, instead of that, it's going to use constants. Again, also the cool thing is that all of these problems, it found out itself previously, yesterday at night. So all of these like refactoring decisions with my help was done mostly like all by itself, with a little bit of guidance from me. And by the way, we are currently at 48% context. So one thing that we could also do is like have a different command that picks up these things from where they are left at. So we could simply say to it, okay, I want you to like make sure that you mark all of the tasks that you have done, and to avoid like stuffing the context window too much, we could simply like uh, clear everything out and continue. But it's good either way. So this is it. I'm going to continue leaving this as running. But as you can see, this model is very good, and like I said, I'm not really sure why people are like underwhelmed, let's say, by it, because this is just a great tool and I'm enjoying working with it a lot. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are about this Horizon Alpha model. And also let me know if you want to see more stuff related to open source tools, because I've started doing more videos on AI and I've started using Claude Code. But to be honest, while the tool is great and while the model is good enough to do a lot of things when it comes to coding, I'm gravitating more and more towards open source, not only in terms of the models, but even more in terms of the tooling. So I'm playing here with the Charm CLI, and the cool thing about that is that uh, Claude Code is not open source, meaning that if I have a problem, if I want to implement something different, if I want to have like an experimentation, when I want to see like how things work under the hood, how I can optimize things, or maybe even how I can just fork the project and add my own stuff to it, I cannot do any of those things with Claude Code, and that's just very like frustrating when it comes to programming, because as you might know, I'm a web developer, and if you're watching this, you're probably a web developer too, and it is very important for us to be able to control our tools, to be able to tweak things, to extend things, to actually know how things work. And the community around these things actually end up building much better tools in the end than closed source tools like Claude Code, because it had sort of the advantage for a couple of weeks. That's like last month, a lot of noise around it, a lot of hype around it. I made a video on how to use some agents with it, but the reality is that these open source tools are going to catch up in the blink of an eye. Like for example, here Crush also has some agents if we specify that we want to use them. The other tool, Goose, or code codename Goose or something like that, also has some agents. So all of these open source tools are catching up. So all of this to say that if you want to see more stuff about open source when it comes to AI coding agents, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.